Hello everyone. So growing up, I don't remember much about my reading experience. I do, however, do remember my mom taking me to the library a lot when I was like in elementary. I remember they used to have these like fun activities that they would do in the evenings. For example, like they would do like a read out loud, but they would have like the person who was doing the read out loud of that specific book would dress up like one of those characters. So I do remember enjoying that and just doing that type of activity when it came to reading. Um, I don't believe I struggled with reading either growing up. I do remember like just struggling with unfamiliar words, and if they were like a long word, then some every now and then I would struggle with pronunciation. But I was more of like a visual learner. So when it came to reading and it being an unfamiliar word, then I always like to attempt it just because it was also something that my teachers would encourage us to do when it came to reading, especially if it was like a reading out, like a whole class reading activity. And a lot of the times they would call on us, so we would have to read in front of everyone. But yeah, I would always attempt to pronounce the word, and then if I didn't, then my teacher would help us with that. I also do remember having one like peer who would, depending on who was sitting next to me at the time of the reading, every now and then they would whisper the word so that I would be able to say it without having the teacher's help. Which is a lot of the times I think what a lot of students prefer, just because they don't like feeling like embarrassed for not knowing how to pronounce words, because I know I would get embarrassed every now and then. And then I don't think I can't remember if we did any peer reading activities or like small group activities. I mainly just remember whole class. And again, having that one peer help me whenever I was trying to pronounce a word. But like based off of my personal experiences and based off of and like all our readings and everything we've learned throughout our courses, and being a new teacher, I personally would want to provide the best learning experience. And I plan to have them not only read independently, because I do also remember like in high school it was mainly independent reading, but I would like to do like pairs or small groups, like a group of 4 or so, and still also incorporate the whole class reading activities, because I want them to learn to work together. I want them to not just learn from me, but also learn from their peers. When it comes to like understanding the text they're reading, or when it comes to pronouncing unfamiliar words, I want them to just have that experience of learning from everyone. I also want to give them a choice of the type of book they read, because I remember like not enjoying reading as much when it was a book selected by the teacher. But when it was books that I got to pick, I found it more enjoyable and more willing to read and participate in activities. So that is definitely something I want to incorporate when working with my students. I also want to do like the peer reading activities where learners are given the opportunity to discuss what they have read. So like if they had a reading assignment the day before, I want them to have the opportunity to discuss it in class the next day. or using like strategies such as like the Cornell notes to help learners have a deeper understanding of what they are reading. That's also something I would consider, where they have to, on one side, have to do like big ideas, and then on the other side, they have to just write more like detailed information that is connected to those big ideas. But that's also something I would be willing to try. So as far as like a book that I enjoyed reading, I'm a huge Harry Potter nerd. I love Harry Potter. Like I've have all the books. I've read all the books. But when I started in order. I started with Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling, and it's illustrated by Mary Grand Prix. That was like, those are my all-time favorite books. I have all of them. But I really enjoyed that one because it was the one that introduced me to the Harry Potter world. But I think too, it had a lot to do more because I could picture everything I read. It like helped me to create an imaginative picture in my head as I was reading every page. And I never found any like boring moment during my reading. I remember staying up late to just like finish a chapter. But I really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend it. And it's Harry Potter, for those of you who have not read or seen the movies. It's about a boy who lost his parents and was left to be raised by family. He later found out that he is a wizard, and would be attending a wizarding school named Hogwarts. So when he attends Hogwarts, he learns about his parents, about his tragic like history like that happened to his family, and then he meets new people at school. He makes friends. He learns about magic, and then he also learns that like about the whole wizarding community, and the sports that they play, which he also becomes a part of, and being young, because a lot of the times, first years don't get to make the team. But he also finds out that, not all wizards and witches are good people. So my favorite part of the book is when he meets Hagrid, who is half a giant and half a wizard. But he meets him on his birthday, and Hagrid kind of like rescues him, I guess you could say, from the type of living situation he was in, and gives him his letter that tells him he's been enrolled at Hogwarts, and he like kind of just takes him away from his family, and so that was like definitely one of my favorite scenes. But I really enjoy this. So I highly recommend that. So for this book, I feel like this book would be a great vocabulary lesson because it introduces you to names for like magical spells and familiar names, and or terms that are used to reference people. So during like a whole class reading activity, I could stop to ask my learners questions such as like, what do you think muggle means? Or before continuing the reading, I could also ask what happened in the reading. How was Harry feeling, as part of a comprehension instruction, including a seesaw writing activity where they would have to describe the characters in the section that we had read as a class, and sharing their answers in like groups or pairs, just giving learners the opportunity to ask their own questions about the reading as well. But that is my discussion. Bye, guys.